Gifted orator, and his service as a public speaker was constantly in demand. During his administration, education showed a steady growth. Rural school libraries were established, the state capitol was enlarged, and the governor's mansion was purchased. The state banking department was created. Measures were passed to protect mine workers and regulate child labor. He was born September 23, 1853. He was governor of Alabama 1911 to 1915, a delegate at large to the Democratic National Convention from Alabama 1912. He died September 7, 1922. Governor Emmit ONeill is buried in the Florence Cemetery, Florence, Alabama. Global position, 34 degrees, 48 minutes, 9 seconds north. 87 degrees, 40 minutes, no seconds west. Charles Henderson, 37th governor, served during the trying days of the Great War. Besides leading his state as a civil administrator, he had added duties of maintaining the state to meet the needs of wartime. The legislature made major changes in the state's assessment system, improved the state's financial status, expanded educational funds, adopted prison reforms, aided the state's farmers, and promoted public health. Governor Henderson was born in Pike County, April 26, 1860. He was governor of Alabama 1915 to 1919. He died January 7, 1937. Governor Henderson is buried in the Troy Cemetery in Troy, Alabama at North Three Notch and North Knox Street. The global position, 31 degrees, 49 minutes, 8 seconds north, 85 degrees, 58 minutes. Kilby, 38th governor, was Alabama's centennial governor, taking office the year that the state became 100 years old. He had served as lieutenant governor in the Henderson administration and became fully qualified to handle the complexities of a growing state. He is regarded as one of the best business executives ever to be governor. The Kilby legislature established the Budget Commission to protect state funds, passed good road laws, increased workmen's compensation, increased Confederate pensions, and provided for construction of Kilby Prison, a model penal institution. Thomas Irby Kilby was born in Lebanon, Tennessee on July 9, 1865. He was Lieutenant Governor of Alabama 1915 to 1919, Governor of Alabama 1919 to 1923. He died October 22, 1943. Governor Kilby is buried in the Highland Cemetery in Anniston, Alabama. Global position, 33 degrees, 39 minutes, 28 seconds north, 85 degrees, 48 minutes, 55 seconds west. Woodward Brandon, the 39th governor, sat in the chief executive's office during a period of prosperity and tranquility. He was elected to the state legislature in 1896 and served until 1901. During the Constitutional Convention of 1901, he served as reading clerk. In 1906, he was elected to the office of state auditor. From 1911 until 1923, Brandon served as the probate judge of Tuscaloosa County. Brandon had a distinguished military career during the Spanish-American War. Major Brandon was appointed Adjutant General in 1899 by Governor Sanford and reappointed by Governor Jelks. William Plainville Woodward Brandon was born June 5, 1868 in Talladega, Alabama. He died December 7, 1934. Governor Brandon is buried in Tuscaloosa Memorial Park, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Global position, 33 degrees, 12 minutes, 7 seconds north. 87 degrees, 27 minutes, 48 seconds west. Charles Samuel McDowell Jr. became acting governor, the 40th, when Governor Brandon spent 21 days in New York City chairing the state delegation to the 1924 Democratic Convention. Samuel McDowell Jr. of Eufaula, Barber County, was born October 17, 1871 at Eufaula. Mr. McDowell was educated at a private school in Eufaula and the University of Alabama. He was a lawyer, having entered practice October 1897 at Eufaula. He was president of the Alabama Bar Association in 1915 and 1916. He was mayor of Eufaula in 1908, 1912, and elected to the state senate in 1918 to represent the 14th district. He served as lieutenant governor from 1923 to 1927. Governor McDowell is buried in the Fairview Cemetery, Eufaula, Alabama. The global position, 31 degrees, 54 minutes, 8 seconds north. 85 degrees, 8 minutes, 31 seconds west. David Bibb Gray's 41st governor served one 4-year term and returned after a lapse of 4 years to also become the state's 43rd chief executive. His first administration was marked by an unprecedented wave of prosperity in its early stages and in its latter stages by a nationwide depression. In his second administration, he carried forward many of the measures he promoted in his first administration, among them being expansion of the Mobile docks, highway construction, expanded state funds for education, and prison reform. Born in Hope Hall, Alabama, April 1, 1873. In 1898, State House of Representatives. He was a colonel in the U.S. Army during World War I. He was governor of Alabama 1927 to 1931, and again 1935 to 1939. He was a delegate to the Democratic National Convention from Alabama at large in 1936. He died in Sarasota, Florida, March 14, 1942. Governor Graves is buried in the Greenwood Cemetery, Montgomery, Alabama. Global position, 32 degrees, 22 minutes, 24 seconds north. 86 degrees, 15 minutes, 41 seconds west. Benjamin Meek Miller, 42nd governor, served the state through the most trying period of the Depression, and his insistence on economy and operation of state affairs perhaps prevented more serious financial conditions than would otherwise have resulted. His administration was marked by major changes in the state's tax laws, including adoption of a state income tax. Governor Miller was a staunch prohibitionist. Born in Oak Hill, Alabama, March 13, 1864. Governor of Alabama, 1931 to 1935. He died in Selma, Alabama, February 6, 1944. He is buried in the Camden Cemetery, Camden, Alabama. Global position, 31 degrees, 59 minutes, 45 seconds north. 87 degrees, 17 minutes, 37 seconds west.
You know, that's ancient history, so...
I know it's ancient. What was his name?
Yeah, Governor Benjamin...
Benjamin McMillan.
Well, he was from...
He was from Wilcox County. Governor Miller had been in the Supreme Court of Alabama, and he ran for re-election and was defeated. And he served 6-year term, and then right after that, he was defeated in 1927. And then he ran for governor and was elected. And that was a very heated debate, and that he served between the two Graves administrations.
Well, now, I have heard he was a rather pious man. Is that correct?
Oh, he was a wonderful man. You can't beat Governor Miller. He was highly religious, and he was fiscal-minded. You don't spend more of the state's money than you take in. And he got that Fletcher Budget and Control Act passed, which made that, it's a constitutional amendment. I think they finally got it through. So they have to live within the means since he passed that. And another thing he put in, when Governor Miller was there, he put in the income tax. He campaigned this state in his personal car, which was an old 1926 Dodge. He went from one end of the state to the other.
He lived in Camden before he came here?
Camden. And while he was here, they lived at the old governor's mansion where the interstate crosses over here on Perry Street. You know, they tore it down and the interstate went right through the lot. And he was living there, and his wife died while he was still in office, I think the last year of his administration.
What was the Capitol, what was the governor's offices like during his term?
Well, the governor's office proper was always kept very nice, but the recording secretary's office, they call it, or the entrance out there, you know, where you come into, and that book you have shows that. Look, but it was horrible. In those days, and especially during Governor Graves' term, they had what they called the 90-day, some kind of thing where you could get out of prison after serving 90 days. And the lawyers just waxed fat on it, coming back and forth, and they'd bring all these women that would come to get their husbands out of prison, would sit on all those old seats around there, and they'd bring all the children they could borrow to get up sympathy for, for their case. And the old desk was an oval desk in there, and it had this veneer on it that was coming off, and you'd stick yourself with it if the image is terrible. And over at one side, there was a little recess in the wall and had a little water speaker coming out of it. And it stayed like that until when well, I'm getting ahead, my next governor would be Governor Dixon anyway, but Miss Dixon did a whole lot towards refinishing the interior, painting it, and putting up new drapes and things. And
Frank Murray Dixon, 44th governor, became governor on the eve of World War II and served his term during the first years of the war. Dixon brought about administrative reform in state government that included the state civil service system. He was one of 3 governors who had a physical disability while governor. He lost a leg in World War I. After leaving the office of governor, he returned to law practice in Birmingham. His last public service was as a states' rights Democratic elector in the 1960 election. He was born in Oakland, California, July 25, 1892. He was governor of Alabama, 1939 to 1943. He died October 11, 1965. Governor Dixon is buried at the Oak Hill Cemetery, Birmingham, Alabama. Global position, 33 degrees, 31 minutes, 31 seconds north, 86 degrees, 49 seconds, 2 seconds west.
You know, he ran the second time before he was elected. And I don't know whether you all remember the campaign. What was that? No taxes, no tax tokens, no token taxes. He ran on the platform of doing away with the sales tax token, which were a nuisance, and with streamlining state government and bringing everything from the county up at the state level. That was the way his platform. And his platform was written from when Governor Miller was in office. He couldn't find out what the state owed, so he had the Brookings Institute to make a survey of state government. And they sat in the basement. That's one time we used the basement. And I was one of the secretaries, and Annie Rand was the other that sat there and worked with him during all that time. He wrote those, I believe it's, how many, there's 5 or 7 volumes, I forget. I got a copy of in there. So Frank Dixon wrote his platform from the recommendations of the Brookings Institute, and they defeated him on that local option feature. They wanted to take the power away from the probate judges and bring it to state level. So the next time around, when Frank Dixon got together with the county, and they all worked out their problems, and he was elected, and he streamlined state government. I mean, today, he took all of those little finance departments, want to do this and want to do that, and put them all together, named it Director of Finance, head of it, and it has deteriorated or eroded very little since the time he set it up.
Were all the offices in the Capitol and government?
Oh, no, that's when they brought them in from all out there. They couldn't get them in the Capitol, but they run, you know, the Revenue Department used to take up, it used to be in the Capitol. How do you reckon they did that? I'm wondering now when they take up all creation. When I worked for the Revenue Department, I think there were 45 employees. And that took in the counties where they have the, you know, the tax assessing board, Board of Equalization, and the boards of registrars and the jury commissions, and all of those. Frank Dixon came in, you know, he was the one who'd had his leg amputated from World War, he got injured in World War I. He was a very learned man. As I say, he came from preachers and teachers and everything. And he was not a man that he liked to deal in big things, streamlining that government and putting over the things he wanted to do, and such a thing. Now, like we take George Wallace, he'll see the least little fellow that comes in there and listen to every word he's got to say. But Frank Dixon had lieutenants to do that, and he expected them to do it. And for that reason, he might not have been considered as friendly a man. He just was tops in every respect, though. Now, I can tell you that. We never had a finer governor than Frank Dixon.
C.M. Sparks, 45th governor, became the second of Alabama's World War II governors in 1943. During his administration, the 8-month minimum school term became law, and the University of Alabama Medical College was established in Birmingham. His law practice in Barber County after his term of office. He was born in Barber County, Alabama, October 8, 1884. He had been a state court judge, 1911 to 1915, a member of the Alabama State Legislature, 1919 to 1923, 1931, 1939, Governor of Alabama, 1943, 1947. He died November 6, 1968. He is buried in the Fairview Cemetery, Eufaula, Alabama. Global position, 31 degrees, 54 minutes, 2 seconds north, 85 degrees, 8 minutes, 25 seconds west.
Had been in the legislature for years. He was a confirmed old bachelor. And he was, like some others, he was against everything that come up. And then one day the thing turned. He had an opportunity to be elected governor, and he saw it from a different angle. And He was elected governor at the time, I believe, when Governor Graves would have been elected the third time, so to speak. So he came in kind of always feeling like that he wanted to be elected by the people, but he was a good governor. But during his term, was World War II, and there wasn't any materials much with which to work or anything. So he came in on the Farm to Market Road. He did a lot towards that. But his main thing that he established the Medical College of Alabama. That was one of the great things he did. And they have named a building up there for him. He never got the recognition that he was entitled to. And this man who is up there now is Dr. Gary Miles, and he comes from the state of Kansas. And he's done a terrific job up there with that medical college. He's got underprivileged children and everything.
It all started under Governor Sparks.
And they've named that building up there for him, and they named it the Sparks Center.
You were telling us a funny story, I believe, one time on the phone about Governor Sparks getting to sign papers was a difficult thing.
Yeah, when he came in, I was going to back up to that. When he came in office, as I said, he had worked for the bank down in Eufaula. I don't know whether he worked in the bank, but he was one of the directors or something, and his signature was the most important thing he owned, and he was just and he was a lawyer in addition to that. He didn't believe in signing anything, so every voucher that paid by the state of Alabama from any department has to first, before it meets payment, come by the governor's office to be approved. Well, he just stuck his heels in the dirt, and he wasn't going to sign. They stacked up. Every table was filled. You could hardly see your way out. All the pieces of furniture were covered. And Hayes Tucker was his finance director. And he kept telling him that they were losing interest by letting these things lapse and everything, you know. So finally, within a week, they convinced him they had to be signed because you could barely get in the office. Well, when we got the green light, it took us about 2 or 3 days to sign those and get them out. Then the real problem arose. There were the school deeds. All this school land had to be approved. Nobody dared take that in there. So one day, this cute little plump lady came in. She wanted to see Governor Sparks. She had not seen him since that courting day. So she went in his office, you know, and oh, he was so glad to see her, and he sat up there, you know, just showing off how the workings of the governor's office went. So Mr. Jones got his little deeds, and in he walked and put them before him, and he signed every one of them. Never did know he'd signed them.
James Elijah Folsom, the 46th and 48th governor of Alabama, was born October 9, 1908 in Coffee County, one of 8 children born to Joshua and Eulalia Donovan Folsom. Most of Folsom's populist ideology developed as a result of his father's political influence and his own extensive reading about history and historical figures, particularly his hero, Andrew Jackson. Folsom was the first governor born in the 20th century. He was also the second governor to serve 2 non-consecutive terms in that office. Many of his proposals, such as repeal of the poll tax, free public school textbooks, and a revised state constitution, were not immediately realized. During his 2 terms, however, the minimum school term was extended to 9 months, and teacher salaries were increased. Folsom died November 21, 1987. Governor Folsom is buried in the Coleman Cemetery, Coleman, Alabama. Global position, 34 degrees, 9 minutes, 53 seconds north. 86 degrees, 50 minutes, 50 seconds west.
Likeable person. He loved people, and his physique carried him places that probably he couldn't have gone otherwise. I mean, he just stood head and ears above anybody. But I shall never forget when he came in office. His first order of business when he was elected was to send somebody to Atlanta, Georgia, instead of the setup of Ellis Arnold. And he copied Ellis Arnold's, you know, the way he handled his administration. Oh, they came back with the biggest ideas you ever saw of filling all these offices, you know, with different people and different things. They came out there and put in new chairs and new desks, and they told me they weren't going to keep me, that they, as soon as I taught my successor there, my job, they were going to they'd give me a job somewhere, but it wouldn't be in the governor's office. So that's the condition. I told him, I said, well, I'll take it under one consideration. That is that I retain my title. I knew if they ever took the title away from me, I'd never get it back. And they draw the money, because I do the work, they draw the money. So they didn't answer me, but they never took it away from me. Well, you know, it rained the week he was inaugurated. It rained just weeks beforehand. And lo and behold, everybody wondered how in the world they'd ever get to have the inauguration. And lo and behold, the day of the inauguration, the sun came out in all of its glory. And I shall never forget, I was standing on that little vestibule out there on the front. You know, I never seen that many people anywhere in the world. They came from every nook and corner of this day. And old General Saliba was adjutant general. So when we went in there that afternoon to go into the governor's office, he stood at the door, and he would let so many in, and then he'd slam the door. And that went on all day. Halt! In would come, slam and go the door. And we had just put in a new carpet. The next day it had to be replaced. That many people came. You just never saw nothing. And one of the things when they came in, I shall never forget this either. He brought in this big placard and hung it over his desk. And there we were just sitting there wondering what was going to happen to us. He says, "We make no small plans." Oh, he was operating beautifully. Jim Folsom was a good governor, though. Everything that he ever stood for, the ones that came after have followed in his footsteps. They recommend the same thing. He went in on a $50 a month pension for the old folks, $1,800 a year for the school teachers. And he could never get those things, but one of his last administration, he got to the $50 a month for the old folks, and it would not be paid until January. So he devised the plan of a little green slip of paper, and it had a little holly wreath, and he mailed it to each one of those recipients for Christmas. It says, "A Christmas gift for you." And on it, it said something like, "On such and such a date, you'll receive an increase of so much in your pension." And you know they've done it since.
You remember when he replaced the steps out front?
Oh, yeah, that was the greatest thing he ever did, with replacing those. I mean, it did more for the building, for the feeling of everything. Because, as I said to you, everybody's going to get old. And to walk up those little old dinky steps, and they were scooped out, you know, they'd been walked on so much, they were scooped out in the center. And you'd go trudging up those little old steps. And lo and behold, he came up with that. And that's the best thing he ever did, I think. In addition to cutting that door in that porter's office and making that an office, that expanded the governor's office, gave us more room.
Seth Gordon Persons, the 47th governor of Alabama, attended public and private schools in Montgomery and received his degree in electrical engineering from Alabama Polytechnic Institute, now known as Auburn University, in 1922. Persons pursued a career in radio broadcasting and eventually operated WSFA, one of Alabama's first radio stations. He served as chairman of the Alabama Rural Electrification Authority, REA, in the late 1930s, and later served as a member of the Public Service Commission. He was defeated by James Big Jim Folsom in the 1946 gubernatorial race, but in 1950 Persons was elected over Chauncey Sparks. Governor Persons was born in Montgomery, Alabama on February 5, 1902. He died May 29, 1965. Governor Persons is buried in the Greenwood Cemetery, Montgomery, Alabama. Global position, 32 degrees, 22 minutes, 24 seconds north, 86 degrees, 15 minutes, 42 seconds west.
He was a businessman. I mean, he had business administration. And he was down, of course, on the Public Service Commission. And he was interested in television. He set up the Alabama Television Commission. And another thing he was interested in was REA. And he did a lot for that. He was connected strongly with REA, not only in Montgomery, but in all over the state. And he was...
REA stands for what now?
As a Rural Electrification Authority, put lights in all these little towns. They set up a board during some of these federal things, I reckon Roosevelt's administration, and he was on that, he was named head of that for Alabama. And they abolished that during the Dixon administration, so he was in the meantime down at the Public Service Commission, and of course he was very instrumental in it then. And then he ran, of course, all the REA. Now that's a lot of votes, if you want to take it in. That had to get him elected. And Gordon Persons was known as a gadget man. You know, he fooled with all these things, and he campaigned in a helicopter. And he'd go to these schools, you know, and he'd drop down on the lawn, and all these children would just have fits over him, and he'd hand down his cards to them and say, take this home to your mama. He got a many a vote like that.
Did he use television to campaign?
Well, no, they didn't use it. It wasn't so prevalent then, was it? He might have used it some, but I can't remember that he did. But he got a nice vote.
Do you remember what was his personality like, and his dress and demeanor and that kind of?
Gordon Persons was one of the best dressed governors we've ever had. But he had some, he didn't like crowds, smoke and things bothered him. He had a heart attack not long before the end of his administration, and he was not even able to ride in the, you know, the outgoing governor rides up to the Capitol with the incoming governor. And what I was going to say about the way he dressed, he was just as well dressed as any man, well groomed anytime you ever saw him. And he liked sporty cars and things of that type. Oh, he was loved by this Montgomery group. I mean, he'd been here always. Worked in filling stations as a little boy and things like that, you know. He'd served all the people.
He lived in the new governor's mansion or the old?
Well, at the old governor's mansion, in fact, Jim Folsom was living in the old governor's mansion, and he was going to buy this new thing where they're living now. I call it new. And Gordon Persons objected to it at that time, but later he bought it and refinished it and everything, and he lived in it, and Jim Folsom got to live in it the next time.
Malcolm Patterson became the 49th governor. During his administration, 1,200 miles of new highway were constructed, and the largest educational appropriation in the state's history up to that time was passed. Between service in World War II, Korean conflict, he obtained an LLB in 1849 from the University of Alabama. In 1953, Patterson returned to Phoenix City, Alabama, and joined the law practice of his father, Albert Patterson. Albert won the Democratic Party's nomination for Attorney General on a pledge to clean up the vice and illegal gambling that was running rampant in Phoenix City. After his father was murdered, John Patterson was elected Attorney General to carry out his father's platform. In 1958, he won election to the office of governor in a runoff against George Wallace. He was appointed by Governor Wallace to the Alabama Court of Criminal Appeals and was re-elected until his retirement in 1997. He keeps regular hours twice a week in an office provided to him as a retired justice.
He knew more about the workings of state government, I imagine, than most any governor that's ever gone in there, because he was right across the street over there in the Attorney General's office, and so many things that go through the governor's office have to be approved by the Attorney General. He is the legal advisor for the governor in a way, for state matters as a whole. And so he came in and he had a very nice administration. I'm going to say this. The state employees felt close to John Patterson. They felt like they had a friend at court.
I'm a great supporter of the state merit system and always have been. And I think it's a great thing. It goes back to the Frank Dixon administration. That's how far back the merit system goes. And it has given the state of Alabama very fine professional people to run the various agencies. So when a new governor comes in and he's appointing department heads and assistant department heads, they're going to be working with qualified, competent merit system people who have been in those departments for years. And of course, they're going to have to rely upon them a great deal to learn the ropes and to learn what's going on. So you just don't walk into a department as a stranger and say like the finance department and start right off changing things without conferring and talking and planning with the people that are there that have been there for years. Now, I used to have regular cabinet meetings. I would make it my business to know what was going on. We would include in our meetings the top people in the merit system in the various departments so that everybody felt like that he was a part of the team. And I didn't go in with any idea of making any radical changes right off the bat in any agency, except maybe the Conservation Department. And but what I wanted was department heads who were qualified and competent and honest, who were going to live on the income that they had, and that they would do the best they could for the state. And I think, by and large, we had one of the best cabinets that any governor ever had. The Conservation Department I found in disarray, and I started out with one fellow who, as department head, and he didn't seem like that he wanted to hang around Montgomery. He was a nice fellow, don't get me wrong, but I had set out certain things that I wanted done in the Conservation Department right away to put it back on its feet, and several months went by and nothing was done, and he was off traveling all the time on his own business, and so I asked him for his resignation, and he gave it to me, and I appointed Bill Younger, director of the Conservation Department, and told Bill, you know, what I wanted, and it went into effect pretty quick, and we did get that Conservation Department back on its feet. It was a terrible mess, and but Bill Younger did a mighty fine. Bill Younger and Joe Kilgore were the two people in that department that did a wonderful job.